Getting my nails done by a robot.
All right, would you have your mani done by a robot? Some women are letting machines do the job to the tune of just 10 bucks. Gas prices are climbing, but don't sweat it. We're going to show you some of the best tools to cut down your pain at the pump. Spring break at the Magical Kingdom can be a bit pricey, we know that, but a mom who is a Disney expert shares her secrets to saving money at the park. And financial expert Matt Schultz joins us to talk about the new cuts to credit card late fees and his new book that will empower you to ask the right questions, save money, and make more. Those are the questions that people don't ask. Well, we're going to talk about this book. It'll help you cut down a lot of what you pay for almost everything. And it's got the scripts to tell you exactly how to do it. So I want you to stick around with me. We will talk with the author later in the show. And welcome to Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us. I'm Heather Sullivan. Before you travel for spring break, before you buy gas or even get your nails done, before you do anything, stick with us for the next 20 minutes because we have great reporting from Fox stations across the country to save you money and empower you financially. So let's get started. Up first, cheap gas seems to be in the rearview mirror. Prices have been increasing from higher oil prices and refinery constraints. And AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular is $3.39. That's up 9 cents from just a week ago. And that more expensive summer blend is coming soon. So Fox's Deborah Shea takes a look at tools that can help you save at the pump.
Whether gas is over $3 or over $5, you never know what the price will be at the pump.
It is ridiculous. Makes me want to come from being retired and come back to working again.
But what you can know is how to save a couple of cents, which could add up to some larger savings.
I downloaded Gate gas station app to try to get points.
And like Ricardo, there are ways you can save at the pump. The best part is there are apps that do a lot of that work for you.
So the one that I use personally is Upside. That is the easiest and best app in my opinion.
Brie, the coupon queen, has always loved finding ways to save money. Now she's helping others save. For her, she enjoys using Upside.
So that app, what it does is it uses your location and it shows you what gas stations near you are giving cash back, and it shows you how much cash back. And then you can cash out right to your bank account.
Another tip, use gas station reward programs.
For example, would be Circle K. So Circle K, when you join them, you're going to get 25 cents off per gallon for your first 5 fill-ups. So that's really nice because the discount is immediate. So you don't have to worry about getting the cash back.
Another good tip, knowing what locations to get gas and which ones to avoid.
Just so you know, this gas is more expensive.
Yeah.
Why did you stop here?
Because I needed to find a gas station.
I took a trip to gas stations near Orlando International Airport. One gas station had gas at $5.89 a gallon. But if you go not even half a block up the road, gas is $3.19 a gallon. Sometimes taking extra time to do research and scoping out a place can save you in the long run. Features like Gas Buddy, where you can compare prices in your zip code, can definitely help.
What's more important? Dealing with the inconvenience of 2, 3, 4 clicks to be able to reach that goal, or how excited you're going to be once you're able to reach that financial goal. Obviously, to do that, you've got to put in some work. You've got to change something in your life.
All right. Well, you can also check out the Gas Buddy link that we have on fox26houston.com. Now, we know flying is becoming more expensive every time we turn around. Airlines, including JetBlue, United, and American, have all recently raised the cost of checking bags. And you remember last week I told you that airlines are charging more at the airport than when you booked the flight for that checked bag. So here's another example. American Airlines is telling customers it's better if they check their bags online, which will cost coach travelers $35 for domestic flights instead of $40 at the counter. But the company says it is reducing fees for bags that come in slightly oversized or overweight. And we are inching closer and closer to spring break. So are you and your family thinking of maybe heading out to Disney? Well, we know enjoying all that the park has to offer doesn't come cheap. So here's an expert with a little bit of magic to cut the cost and make the most out of your trip. Fox 35 in Orlando spoke with the author of A Mom's Guide to Disney World, who has turned her knowledge of one of Orlando's biggest attractions into a business.
As we inch closer and closer to spring break season, I know a lot of people out there are going to be turning to theme parks to kind of keep the kids busy. And for some, a trip to Disney can be a little overwhelming, not just for us locals, but people visiting, tourists who are coming to town as well, which is why we are turning to author and influencer Brooke Raybould. Brooke, how are you? So good to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here as the Disney season approaches.
Yes, it's a really busy season. So, Brooke, you're actually the author of A Mom's Guide to Disney World, and you're making money off of this. This is kind of a new concept that some people are capitalizing off. How did you even come up with the idea of doing this?
Sure. So I'm a mom to four, but back when I had two little boys, we went to Disneyland for the first time. And I remember showing up without a plan, thinking that we'd get on a bunch of rides. Little did I know, Disneyland was not the Disneyland that I grew up with.
No.
And so showed up, we didn't have my son's shoes. I forgot as a mom, we didn't have a stroller. I was meeting a friend there and it was hot. There were lines. We got on one ride and I couldn't remember why my parents brought me to Disney. I grew up in Southern California, why they brought me to Disneyland so often. And after that, I never wanted to step foot in Disneyland again. And it was a friend of mine through social media who saw that we were going to go back to Disney World. And she's like, you have to buy this book. It's called The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. And I kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, I'm not going to buy a book to go to Disney World. Like, you don't buy a book.
Covered.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to Disney World. We're not going to Europe, you know?
Right.
But then I took her advice, I bought the book and I started reading. And that's when this whole new world of information opened up. And I couldn't believe it. And then I couldn't believe that parents were showing up and spending this kind of money like we did the first time that we went, not knowing that there's so much to going to Disney World. It is like planning in some ways a European vacation, whether that's considering the cost of it and all the little intricacies, or now even the technology. And then it wasn't until our second year that we went back that I said, you know what, I'm getting so many questions. I'm just going to put this into a digital guide.
Okay, so this digital guide, I know that, we can find all of the tips and tricks of the trade there, but what would you say is your number one suggestion that you give people who are trying to decide how their trip is going to be planned when they visit Disney?
Sure. My number one tip is knowing the general landscape of the parks. So having a plan. I'd say studying the plan because it's going to be crowded. There's going to be a lot of people. And so if you don't generally have a plan about, Disney is, there's four different there's four different parks within Disney World. So let's start there. I didn't even know this, right? And then within each theme park, there's different lands. So if, your child is interested in Toy Story and you decide to go to Animal Kingdom, which doesn't, it has a whole different vibe. Right. Somewhat, and I don't want to use the word failed, but there's going to be a little bit of a letdown. So I think my biggest tip is to plan.
So your guide, let's get into this a little bit. How much does it cost?
So the guide is $40 and I often run promotions. It is a 200-page guide. And so I don't equate it to what you'd find at a bookstore because it's all, I have it here. It's all colorful. There's images. I have a whole, tech section with how to use Genie Plus. And so there's visual graphics. I have my own, my personal park itineraries, as well as our early park entry schedules. And I have outfit recommendations.
Wow.
But I priced it at $40. And I'd say that, when you think of how much it can save you, that is where the value came in.
So where can people find the guide and find more about you online?
Sure. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Brooke Raybould, and we will be doing our annual Disney trip in May. And I share a lot of wonderful videos. And you can also purchase the guide at brookeraybould.com/Disney World. So that's BROOKERAYBOULD.com/Disney World. And that's where you can find the guide. And I also have a guide to Disneyland as well.
It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, Brooke. Thanks for joining us for the late news.
Thank you.
All right, well, if you are feeling overwhelmed by debt, you are certainly not alone. U.S. consumers accumulated record debt last year, landing household debt numbers nationwide north of $1 trillion. Is it a sign of a weakening economy? Fox's Steve Noviello talks about what it means and how you can manage the amount that you owe.
While that number is a new record, when you adjust for inflation, the folks at Bankrate say the amount of debt that consumers are carrying is actually a good 20% lower than it was at the peak in 2008. Add to that employment is up, income is up, and the population is up, and it really adds some perspective. Of course, that does little for the folks who are looking at their bill each month and wondering exactly how they're going to pay it off. So how do you do it? Well, I hate to sound too simplistic, but $1 at a time seems to be the best way. In order to do that, you really have to get honest, though, about what is causing your bill to balloon. Is it utilities and necessities like food, or are you like everyone else on my Instagram feed walking around with a $45 Stanley Cup? It's also important to keep in mind that these are debt numbers, not repayment numbers. 55% of borrowers are actually paying their balance in full each month, which strongly supports what I just said earlier about incomes and employment being higher. People's debt-to-income ratio is looking rather healthy for most borrowers because household incomes have actually outpaced growth in debt. So if you're in a situation where you've got the money to allocate toward paying off that debt and also the emergency savings, which one do you choose? Well, how about both? There's an easy way to do it. First, stop putting everything on your credit card, right? I know that it's tempting, it's very easy, and then you've got all the rewards, but remember, interest rates are up. That means not only the amount of interest you will pay, but the amount of interest you will earn. You can avoid the higher interest rate you pay by paying off the portion of your balance which is subject to interest each month. Then take the remainder of your cash and add it to your emergency savings account, which at this point should be earning you north of 4 or 5%. If it's not, you should start shopping that around. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely.
We always do. Thanks, Steve. Well, the tipping debate is spilling over into the world of French tips. Some women are getting their manis done by robots. Take a look.
Getting my nails done by a robot.
People are posting on TikTok that they're getting their nails done for under $10 by robots. It's not only saving them big money on the cost of a manicure, but it's also saving them the tip. The machines are meant to provide self-care that is fast and affordable. So would you do this, or have you already? Drop me a line, let me know on Instagram or Facebook. It's Heather Sullivan, Fox 26. And more Americans are planning to save their tax refund this year. According to Bankrate, 28% of people expecting a refund say they will use most or all of that money to boost their savings. That is more than last year. And 19% plan to pay down debt. That number is a lot fewer than a year ago. And the National Association of Realtors says consumers are showing extra caution when it comes to buying new homes thanks to mortgage rates. The numbers of pending home sales dropped 4.9% in January. That's the largest since August of last year, when pending sales fell 5%. Pending sales are those that are under contract but are not yet closed. And you've seen this trend of people buying tiny homes, as the smaller space can mean big savings. Well, now we're seeing there's a race to rent one, too. A tiny home listed for rent in Las Vegas received an overwhelming response from renters intrigued by the tiny lifestyle or just desperate for an affordable place to live. Fox's Jacqueline Schultz checks it out.
Well, this is it. You have your standalone small dinette there. Stove, 2-burner stove. This is a washer dryer.
Dining, kitchen, fridge, shower, and second floor bedroom, all in 160 square feet. And you get a private yard. The landlord listed it for rent. The price point struck a chord.
$950, it's all bills included. electricity, water, trash, Wi-Fi. Look around town now, it's hard to find a studio at that price point. Literally have 113 and counting people, and it keeps ringing.
The landlord would like to remain anonymous and not share the location. The tiny home is somewhere in the Las Vegas Valley. He built it himself for $22,000, and he wanted to keep rent reasonable. Some people in Las Vegas have embraced the tiny home lifestyle to have less and save more. Did they want the lifestyle, or were they just looking for an affordable place?
I think there's a lot of people out there, well, here in Vegas, that requirements also in apartments and anywhere they want to rent probably don't meet those requirements. A family of 4 inquire if they can come.
A family of 4
A
wanted
family,
to live here.
yes. Actually, 3 people reached out and said, I have 2 kids plus a dog. It's a tough situation to be in. You know, it's sad. Of course, I can't help 113 people, but you know, someone's gonna definitely be living here.
The landlord has built about a dozen tiny homes for others. Some wanted their own home. Others wanted to rent it out. He says the interest shows the state of the economy, housing market, and rental market.
It's definitely in people's heart to want to save some money right now. You know, so this economy is tough. People are just wanting to own something versus having to be in debt for forever.
All right, you know, one of my favorite statistics is that about 75% or so of people who ask their credit card company to cut their interest rate actually get a lower rate, but most people don't ask. So we're going to talk about that and other questions that you should be asking with Matt Schultz. He is the author of this book, just came out, Ask Questions, Save Money, and Make More. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So first, what I love is you have a quote in here that I used to actually have on my wall that talks really about we give up our power by not realizing that we have any.
Yeah, and that's really the biggest theme of the book is that people have way more power over their money than they realize. And a big part of it is simply that banks and retailers and other companies look at you in terms of lifetime values. So the longer you're a customer, the more money they make off of you. So if you are asking for a reduction of something like an annual fee on a credit card or a late fee, that $10 or $30 is a grain of sand on the beach for a big bank, but they know that it'll make you feel really good, keep you around, and keep you spending money. So once you kind of realize that, it has you feeling much more powerful and much more confident going into the conversation.
And what I like about your book is that you really kind of lay out, you know, with sort of sample scripts, how to approach all these different kinds of asks and things that we need to be asking. Let's talk a little bit more about credit and debt and what you talk about some of the questions that we need to be asking to improve and cut down what we're paying.
Yeah, like you said earlier about asking for a lower interest rate on your credit card, that's a really significant thing because credit card rates are the highest they've ever been. And you can do that ask, and oftentimes it's really about taking the time to do a little bit of homework, look for other offers at sites like LendingTree or at credit card issuer websites or even in your snail mail. And you can go to your card issuer and say, hey, I've been a good customer, I like using the card, but my interest rate's 27%, and I just found this card that I can get for 21%. Will you work with me? And the card marketplace is so competitive that there's a good chance that they'll work with you.
Yeah, and I love that when people do that, they generally are successful. People just need to ask more.
Yeah, and it's that success rate indicates that it's not just folks with 800 credit scores and long track records, it's regular folks who really need the help.
Let's talk a little bit about medical debt because you address that in the book, and we know medical debt it's the #1 reason people end up filing for bankruptcy. People can really be drowning in medical debt, but you're saying there are questions that we need to be asking about both our bills and about prescriptions.
Yeah, medical debt is a really big thing, and there are very few costs in life potentially bigger than medical debt. And one of the things that's really important to understand is that first bill that you get after a procedure or a trip to the doctor's office, a lot of people even use the word like it's a work of fiction. It's just not accurate a lot of times. And so if you have any questions about whether you are getting a bill that really represents what you actually went through, the thing to do is ask for an itemized bill with what are called CPT codes, which are basically these specific codes that the industry uses to kind of lay out exactly what specific procedure was done. Once you have that, you can go through and look and see, well, that's not quite what I had done.
Yeah.
Can you change it? And that sort of thing can show if you've been overcharged or if inaccurately charged, and it's a big deal. And it's something that if your doctor pushes back on you for asking for it, you may want to look for a new doctor.
Yeah, and we know that the medical bills actually have errors quite frequently, so it's very good to ask.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you have in here. It's just kind of under the shopping umbrella, but there are a lot of things that we're signing up for buying, but you're saying there are a lot more questions that we should be asking.
100%. And while you're probably not going to be able to negotiate and haggle at Kroger over a loaf of bread and a box of Cheerios, you can, especially with higher ticket items, you can often ask for a discount or some sort of lower rate and get it. And a good example of that would be at a mom and pop appliance store or furniture store. Those you can often get, whether it's the floor model or free delivery or just tossing in a couple of throw pillows to kind of close the sale. Those sorts of little things can really make a big difference when you're on a budget.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how people can get their hands on the book. Check it out.
Yeah, it's available to be purchased everywhere you buy books online, and you can find out more about it at mattschultz.com/book, and I'm on socials at by Matt Schultz.
Great. Well, that makes it easy. I appreciate that. Well, while I have you here, because you're also the Chief Credit Analyst for LendingTree, and the big news this week is that we're now going to have a cap on the late fees for credit card payments. We're seeing so many people are making late payments these days because so many people are struggling. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening here?
Yeah, basically what's happening is that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the consumer watchdog agency for the federal government, announced that they're going to cap credit card late fees at $8 as a maximum. And right now that maximum is $30 for your first offense and $41 for future offenses after that. So that's a really significant reduction, and especially when you consider that the folks who tend to pay these fees tend to pay them over and over and over again. So when you're chopping $25, $30 off of that late fee, that's a significant thing.
I think, though, it'll be a big help for people. But at the same time, the important thing is to remember that if you're late, there are still other consequences. Like, this is not permission to just be late.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst thing you can be for your credit is excessively late with your payment. Job number one for anyone with a credit card is to pay that bill on time every single time, even if you're just paying the minimum. And it's also important for people to understand that whether it's an $8 fee or a $30 fee, it may be worth making a phone call to your card issuer and saying, hey, I just did this one time. Can you give me a break and waive the fee? And oftentimes they will.
And by the way, the script for doing that is going to be in the book. So
Absolutely.
Matt Schultz, thanks so much for sharing both with us. We really appreciate it. And again, the name of the book is Ask Questions, Save Money, and Make More. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Dollars and Cents.